Welcome to episode 23.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
The holiday season is upon us, and there is no time like the present to book your holiday getaway with 3D Travel Company. Whether you want to set sail on the high seas or visit exotic and foreign locales, maybe your dream is to see a magical mouse, or maybe you long for a getaway that will universally appeal to all. For a limited time, my listeners receive a Disney gift card with qualifying Disney vacation purchases booked and traveled by the end of 2016. For more information on booking any of these trips, go to 3dtravelcompany.com and tell them Trenton sent you.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest is a news anchor, a voice actor, and an author of a book called More Than Just a Voice, The Real Secret to Voiceover Success. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today on the show we have Dave Courvoisier joining us today. Dave, thanks so much for coming on the show.
It is a pleasure to be here with you, Trenton. Thanks for asking me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, Dave. You know, some of the things I had read about you online and just being a man of integrity and, you know, being a man that, you know, treasures ethics, and your voice just comes through golden, and I can tell you have a good heart. You're the kind of person that just, I don't know, there's something about you and your voice that just really speaks volumes about who you are. So, well,
I'm blushing over here. I thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I'm glad to know that, you know, it seems genuine and authentic. That's the way we all should be in voice acting.
Absolutely. In life too, in life.
Yes, sir.
And especially in voiceover. But, you know, Dave, the very first thing I always like to kind of ask my guests is kind of just a background for our listeners on who our special guest is, kind of who was Dave growing up and how did you become the man in voiceover?
Well, I grew up on a farm in Illinois, so I grew up with a very wholesome life, and my father was a Swiss immigrant, so that's where I get that strange name. And I went to the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana for 4 years, and then went back for 2 more years for a graduate degree. And boy, you know, I really wandered around through a lot of jobs before I landed in voice acting. Of course, I've been in broadcasting for more than 35 years, and I kind of noticed a couple of years ago the decline of broadcasting. It happened in radio about 5 to 10 years ago, and it's happened to TV now. And so I thought, well, you know, I need to have a plan B. And so I chose voice acting, thinking it was so close to broadcasting that it would be a cinch. But it turns out it's not at all like broadcasting. So
absolutely. And you know, one of the things I know for you went to school to get a physical education degree for your bachelor. Is that correct?
Right. I got a exercise physiology degree, and that was under the physical education college at University of Illinois. Right.
Okay. And so I guess I was just kind of like, wow, you know, because you went from like a physical education background to broadcasting and voiceover. And I was kind of just like, what shifted your gears to get into that industry in the first place with broadcasting?
You know, it was, I'd always played around with my voice, and my friends said, you ought to do that. And, you know, it's one of those things that we all hear. If you have a good voice, and people sooner or later will say, hey, you ought to be in radio. So, you know, I kind of thought, you know, if I don't try this, I'm always going to wish that I would have.
Yeah.
And so I took that initiative, and I joined a broadcasting workshop in L.A. and got my first job on radio at a country western station in Carlsbad, New Mexico. I mean, I started at the bottom. It was an interesting trek, but I was young and I was unattached, and you can do that, you know, at that time. And so, you know, that was a big leap. You're right. It's my degree has served me well personally, but I've never applied it to a job.
Absolutely. So after you did the workshop and you were in broadcasting, about how long were you in broadcasting before you started transitioning into voiceover?
Oh gosh, About 30 years. I was in radio and then in TV, and I did TV news anchoring and reporting for many, many years. And it was about 2006 or 7 I started seeing the erosion of the audience and the changing of the ownership, and just a general unseating of the throne of TV as the number one media. Now it's the internet, and people are getting their news off their phones. And no, the older generation still watches TV, but the millennials, anybody from 18 to 35, they're getting their news off their phone, and that's going to be the future. So yeah, it was time to do something else, and that's why I chose voice acting.
Well, I appreciate you diving into that background and kind of telling us where your humble beginnings started on a farm. And, it's pretty wild. It sounds kind of like Clark Kent, grow up on a farm, come to the big city,
Well, I was lucky. I don't know. I still have many friends back in my little town of Greenville, Illinois, and hey, they've got a great life too. I don't make any judgments on that. It's just that my life took me a different direction, and I have no regrets.
Absolutely, Dave. And currently you are at KLAS Channel 8, which is a CBS affiliate, correct?
Yes.
And you've been there since 2003.
Right. I've been at KLAS for 13 years. Now, before that, I started in 1985 and worked 13 years at the NBC affiliate in Las Vegas. So in between, I took a 5-year hiatus and worked at a CBS affiliate in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. So the move back to the Midwest was a personal choice because my parents were aging, and I couldn't do their care long distance. So I moved back to the Midwest, closer to them, spent 5 years at a CBS affiliate there in Cape Girardeau, which is my wife's hometown. And then when that resolved itself, I knocked on the door of Channel 8, the station where I'm working at right now. They needed an anchor, and so that's the end of the story. I've been here for 13 years, and I've worked 26 years in the Las Vegas market, and that that familiarity with the audience is a real plus for a news anchor. It's that comfortability factor that viewers say they want, and they feel reassured by seeing that same face on the air day after day, and I provide that. So that's like I said, job security.
Absolutely. And the fact that you have such a smooth voice, I'm sure that doesn't hurt either.
It's the funny thing about TV is people don't realize is most of it is VO. It's you introduce a story and then they take the pictures and then you're talking underneath that. So very little of it is on camera. Doesn't hurt to have a nice face when you're on camera, but a lot of it is voice.
Yeah, very true. And, that's one of the things about our show, or my show, that I like to try to show people is that voiceover is more than just animation, that it can be that aspect that you use in the news. And that's fantastic. It's a great example of another way voiceover can be used in the industry. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Sure.
Well, Dave, I know you've done a lot of different voiceover jobs for audiobook publishers, documentaries, and commercial spots. What are some of the other kinds of voiceover projects that you've worked on?
Oh my gosh, I have. It's probably easier to say what I haven't done. I never got into gaming voices or animation, and I think sometimes maybe I should, but you almost have to live in LA to do that right.
Yeah.
And so, I'd say my bread and butter is probably, e-learning and corporate tutorials, productions that involve education. And the reason for that is I can almost do it without thinking because it's so close to the newscast delivery. It's a straightforward delivery with not a lot of emotion. It needs to be conversational and comfortable, but it's not the kind of theater work that they expect out of you when you do audiobooks. And yeah, I've done some audiobooks. They're fun to do. They really ask a lot of you as an actor, and I enjoy that challenge. But, the pay scale is just not there. And I was spending a lot of time at the mic, and then the check came, and I'm thinking, all this is all I get, for spending 13 hours at the mic and then editing for another 13 hours. So, e-learning has been the key for me in success. And here's another thing that I like about e-learning is you're dealing mostly with corporate clients, and they're not in the media world.
Yeah.
So they don't, they don't quite get all this stuff about, rates and unions and things. They just want to know that you're reliable and dependable and that you have a good relationship with them. You stay in communication with them and you negotiate a price up front and you stay with your contract and you, that's what they're looking for is a reliable partner in their business.
Absolutely. Someone they can trust and come back to time and time again
Yep.
should they need to. So that's fantastic. Right. Well, you've done so much, and I mean, it would be great to see you in some animations and some video games because you do have a stellar voice. And I'm a gamer. I don't play as actively now that I do my show between life and school and my wife and just everything going on. But
Sure.
I would love to hear you in some video games. In fact, I think you would make a good James Gordon on Batman.
Alrighty.
So Detective Gordon. But anyway, tell us a little bit about your book, More Than Just a Voice, Dave.
Well, so it started with about 1 million calls that I've gotten, one or two a week, and it's usually from a guy who's got an unbelievable set of pipes. Hi, my name's Bob, and everybody says that I should be in radio, and I thought I'd call you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Bob, I know you want to be a voice actor, and you've got a great voice, obviously, but it's only about 15% of the formula for success in voice acting. The other 85% is being a good business person. I've written a lot of blogs about that, and I write a daily blog 5 days a week, have been for 8 or 9 years. I've written over 2,500 blog articles, and there was a ton of great information in those blogs. So I started to collate those blogs into a book. I made a book out of my best work, written work. It turns out that there's an audience for that out there, and I chose the title because, as the saying goes, it takes more than just a voice.
Yeah.
You have to be a good business person and a good freelancer and a good relationship person, a good promoter, a good marketer. It takes more than just a voice.
Well, absolutely. And that's something that I didn't even realize when I started my podcast, because initially I did it because I do have a huge passion for voiceover and would love to get in it myself someday. But right now, my focus was the podcast. And I didn't realize that when I was starting out to do podcasting, I was doing more than just creating a show. I was being an entrepreneur in the fact that it is a business and it's a whole side of things that I never imagined I'd be doing, never thought I even wanted to do, and fell in love with it when I started doing it. So,
well, I think it's a mistake so if you've ever or always worked for someone else, which I have, then being on your own is scary, exhilarating, and a lot of work. There's downsides, there's good days and bad days. And those are the hardest lessons I've had to learn as a voice actor, is not the talent coaching or not the audio chain and how to get my sound just right. Those are all technical things. The hardest part was learning how to be a good business person, to run my own business, to do the bookkeeping, to market myself, and to be relational in the community. Those were all lessons that were hard learned.
Well, Dave, yeah, that is a most excellent word. And I totally am on board with you where you're at, coming from that perspective of, lessons hard learned, because sometimes the only way we can learn is by doing. And I've definitely learned that the hard way.
Yeah, it's a lesson that everybody has to figure out at some point, or you just fail, because you can have the best pipes in the world and not be a good business person, not be good at promoting or marketing yourself, and that's going to be your downfall.
Absolutely. Because without marketing yourself, how are people going to know? And when we're speaking about marketing, Dave, how important would you say social media is to building a new voiceover career if you're a new talent, a budding talent, or someone that's kind of somewhat established or is established? How important is an online presence?
Well, I'd say in this day and age, you can't ignore it. It's not the end all and be all. It's not everything. I know plenty of people who are not really dedicated to social media at all and are doing just fine.
Yeah.
But I think going forward, it's something you just can't ignore. I dived into it head first because I thought it was an excellent way to market myself, mostly for free. And it's worked out for me pretty well, but it's also taken a lot of hours. I mean, it's not something you can just set up like a website and walk away. You've got to interact. It's a conversation, and that means you've got to be there to do your own customer service. And that customer service is usually, talking to people, being in conversation, acting and reacting to what you see online.
Absolutely. And our world has just become so socially connected by the social medias. And I say that social media because it's almost funny. We're not very social anymore, but we call it social media, because it's all done electronically,
Right. There's a certain divide there, and as we all know about the internet, people hide behind that anonymity to do and say bad things, and that's unfortunate. It's kind of like road rage in a sense, because you're hiding behind the car. But there's also a lot of good that comes out of that social interaction. And no, it's not personal. You don't have that person right there looking you in the face and shaking your hand. But there is a lot of progress that can be made online. And then later, if you need to meet up with a person or even make a phone call to make the connection even more personal, that can be done.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, thank you so much for sharing that information about the social media world.
Yeah.
I know that I've definitely gotten more involved in it as I've started doing the show, and Twitter was kind of a something I was very unfamiliar with and had to kind of reacquaint myself with. And Facebook, it's different when you're publicizing yourself versus just using it for general use and stuff. So, but what in the voiceover industry, what is a project that you've worked on that was your favorite and why?
Oh my gosh. Well, I did narrate an entire book for a medical tutorial, and it was hard work. And I guess it was my favorite because it paid really well, but it was extremely difficult because it was every medical terminology known to mankind. And I had to really dig deep and find some medical dictionaries and some other terminology to try to learn how to pronounce all the terms correctly. And there was a lot of redos, and it was a project I really got hip deep into. But like I said, it paid really well, and it was very fulfilling. And my wife's a nurse, so she helped me with some of the medical terms. And then
That's awesome.
It was just knowing that I had the whole project in my hands, and it was quite lengthy. I know Bob Sauer, another well-known voice actor, has told many people that he found his most fulfilling work to be his narration of the Bible, which I can see. But man, can you imagine all the names, and that the challenge of that?
Yeah.
So that was one thing. I just also recently did an audiobook, and I don't do many audiobooks anymore, but I got a call out of nowhere to do an audiobook about it was a very Christian-oriented tale, historic tale that it was just wonderful to read, and like I said, the audiobook realm can be very fulfilling, for the actor in you, but it doesn't fulfill the pocketbook all the times.
Well, how can people reach out to you, Dave, via social media or website, or what's the best way?
Well, I'm pretty much everywhere. You can email me at Courvo, Courvo @Courvo.com. You can find me on the web at Courvo.com. I'm on Facebook as Courvo. I mean, I use that term consistently. It's an abbreviation of my last name, and that abbreviation ends in the letters VO, so that's convenient for me. And it's a lot easier to spell than Courvoisier. So those are a couple of ways. I'm on Twitter as Courvo. I'm on Facebook as Courvo. Those are probably the best ways to reach me. Yeah.
Fantastic, Dave. Thank you so much for sharing that, so people can either reach out to you with questions or advice, or maybe trying to get an autographed book.
Well, my book is available on Kindle. You can it's on Amazon, of course, which is
okay.
Owns Audible, and they own so much anymore. But if you either search my name or the name of the book, More Than Just a Voice, you'll get that coming up on Amazon as a book, or as a Kindle book, or as a paperback book that you can order.
Absolutely, Dave. Well, I have just two final questions for you,
Sure.
And we will wrap this up. My first of the two is, what is your favorite cartoon or show from growing up, and why?
Oh my gosh. Well, I had many. As a kid, I watched morning TV all the time. I suppose, like a lot of kids, I love the Warner Brothers, with all the Warner Brothers movies, with Yosemite Sam and Daffy Duck and I'm trying to think of Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote. Those were some of the best. I watched Mickey Mouse too. Of course, I watched Mighty Mouse.
Oh yeah.
So there's I'd be hard pressed to find a favorite. Those all had an impact on me. They all had an impact on me. Yeah.
Well, those are all really great shows, and Mighty Mouse is actually something I've heard that may be coming back out, a re-release of that, kind of a new age version. But I loved Mighty Mouse growing up, and all of the Looney Tunes characters. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, one side note is when I was in the broadcasting workshop in LA back in this is the late 70s, one of the guest speakers was Mel Blanc.
Oh, wow.
And I got to, sit and hear him speak for about an hour, and we got to ask questions. And he was a god in that realm, and so that, to me, that was off the charts, big time.
Oh wow, yeah, that would be mind blowing. Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I'm really glad you shared that with us, because anytime I get a chance to learn anything about Mel through someone who's had an experience, it's always extremely fascinating for me. So.
Yeah, he just broke ground for so many people.
Yeah, and he was so genuine from what can tell and what I understand. So he
generous guy,
generous and kind and sweet. And wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Dave. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, and Captain Kangaroo. What was the cartoon on that? It was Tom Terrific.
Tom Terrific. Yeah.
Yep.
That's excellent. Okay. Awesome.
Anyway, just throw that in too.
Yeah. Well, the final question that I have for you, Dave, is what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Well, I'd like to think that I would be known for having contributed to the community, to have paid it forward, to have helped as many people as I could, because the work is work, and you like to be paid for it. But I think ultimately, just like in life, you're gonna be fulfilled by the time you spend with others and what you give to them, because giving is its own reward and brings many blessings back.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Dave, because I've always been a giver myself. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And, I think as a giver, you end up returning so much just from the joy you can bring others by helping them and assisting them, and just the impact you've had on the voiceover world. I know it's an honor for me to have you on the show, and it's wonderful to learn from you and just hear your stories firsthand. And I really appreciate your time. So,
Trenton, anytime. It's good to get to know you too, and I'm happy to share that stuff. None of it's a secret, and if it'll help someone, then all the better.
Absolutely. Because what better way than to help others in life and, reap the benefits from just knowing that we're helping other people,
So true. Yeah.
Well, Dave, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on the show today. Would you please just give us a closeout?
This is Dave Courvoisier on Who Did That Voice?
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dave Courvoisier. And if you did, please stop on by my Contact Me page on my website at www.whodidthatvoice.co or .org. I'd love to hear from you. Hey everybody, a big special thank you to New World Comics this week for the giveaway prize. They are located at 6219 North Meridian Avenue. They're in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma at zip code 73112. If you get a chance to go inside and say hey to Buck and his crew, please do, and let them know that Trenton sent you from Who Did That Voice. Hey everyone, this week we have a second giveaway for a local Oklahoma City resident. It's to a store called The Grotto in the Quail Springs Mall, Suite 122. They do salt therapy, and the gift card is for one of their special salt inhalation therapy sessions. It helps open up your lungs and your airways, so a very big special thank you to The Grotto, who is the first established halotherapy location in Oklahoma. Thank you guys so much. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us this Tuesday for our next midweek special with Garrett Vandenberg. Garrett is an author and composer of music, the writer of my theme song, and a voiceover actor. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, are you ready to win some awesome prizes? All you have to do is like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter for your chance to be instantly and automatically entered for your chance to win.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.